The following show is paid for and brought to you by Peter Savio and Savio Associates, LLC. Capital Convo on AM 690 and FM 94.3. The Answer is brought to you by the Savio Group of Companies, with the belief that we can solve all of our state's problems, including housing, by understanding the issues. We are ready to talk, and we want to hear from you. Join the convo by calling 833-296-TALK. Capital Convo is now in session.
Aloha, this is State Representative Elijah Pierick coming to you live from the Salem Media Studio in Kalihi, Oahu. I've got two wonderful guests with me today, one from Oahu and somebody, I believe, visiting us. We have Michele and Nancy. You guys have done so many great things for our state, but I want you guys to tell all of the details to us. So let's start with Michele. Share with us who you are and what you do.
Oh, hey, Elijah. So glad to be here. Thank you for having us. I'm born and raised here on Oahu. I was a school teacher for about 14 years in elementary education. And then my husband planted a church, and we had a church for about 23 years. But about 9 years ago, I'm an executive director of Explicit Movement, a nonprofit organization. Just a little bit in a nutshell.
Great. And to expand a little bit on what Explicit is, that's basically a group of people that love the community in Hawaii, and they want people to know their best. They want people to do their best. And so that's helping them understand how God sees them as cherished, as beautiful, and how they can walk undefiled in this life and be preserved before marriage.
Yes.
And if they have, if you will, tainted themselves before marriage, this movement helps them become cherished again, become respected again, and helps them understand how they can experience healing post abuse.
Yes, we cover actually a lot of different topics. It's really about healthy relationships, but we also really help youth, young adults, parents, church leaders, and community leaders, help them to navigate the many issues also on sex and sexuality, which are topics that are often uncomfortable to talk about, hard to talk about. But, there's so much pain and hurt in the world with, sexual abuse, sex trafficking, even pornography addiction, and even, just saving yourself, having vision for marriage and the valuing of sex within the context of a committed relationship, marriage, and just being able to have healthy relationships. And so we really have a passion to really help and serve people of Hawaii and beyond to have those thriving, healthy relationships. And we just love it. And recently, I'll just highlight this one wonderful project that we had a vision for. It's Brave and Beautiful, which is a beautiful 4-volume set. It's really for teenage girls, but 75% of the content is really to build confidence, know their value, grow in emotional health, have vision and dreams for their life in a positive way, right? But we also have 25% of the content really dives into helping them to protect themselves, ways to practically be equipped to protect themselves from sex trafficking, victimization. We cover topics of as pornography, a little bit about that, and sex abuse, because those three topics are all interrelated, but it's all done beautifully in age-appropriate way. And so we really care about having our girls here in Hawaii and beyond grow up strong and healthy and thriving as strong young women, the next generation, but also be safe in the process. So we love that, and we're working on Brave and Bold for teenage boys, and so that's coming out next year. And we're just so excited to serve the people of Hawaii, the families of Hawaii.
Good job. Thank you, Michele. I appreciate all that you're doing for Hawaii. Let's introduce Nancy. I know that you are a fashion designer. Before that, you were in, the business world, and you've helped create fashion for, I believe, princes and leaders from around the world. So welcome, Nancy.
It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me, Elijah. Yes, so I am a fashion designer based in Wine Country, Napa. Love Napa. It's beautiful, and came from the banking, did wealth management, had success in that, and then I had 4 babies, and all I wanted to do was to be a stay-home mom. But it was during this period that I had a radical supernatural encounter that completely changed the trajectory of my life, and I got called into the fashion industry. And so we have used fashion. It's really our platform to empower humanity.
Awesome. So explain, what is empowering humanity?
So couple things. So can I share with you actually the encounter I had that
You
called
have
me
an
into
hour, so
fashion?
go for it.
All right, let's do this. So this was when I had convinced my husband that I want to be a stay-home mom to our 4 babies and just cuddle them. Well, I was at this faith-based conference, and suddenly I heard this audible voice. And right when I heard this audible voice, everything shuts down. Like I couldn't see anyone, couldn't hear anything. I see this big scroll falling down and opening up. And on the scroll, I felt like I was in a movie theater all by myself. And I saw my oldest daughter, Isabella, in her face. So I replied back to the voice.
What in her faith?
My oldest daughter, Isabella, her face, like her face, because the audible voice said, "Do you know your daughter?" And that was when I saw the scroll and I saw my oldest daughter's face. And so I just naturally respond back and I said, "Of course I know my daughter. That's Isabella." And the voice comes back and says, "Well, your daughter, along with every other little girl, dreams of wearing this beautiful, exquisite gown simply to be a princess." And that was when I saw my daughter like just twirling this magnificent gown. And I replied and I said, "Of course, every little girl wants to wear a beautiful dress. It's not about it's not about the title, but it's about the identity, having dignity, being valued, being loved." And the voice comes back and says, "Well, what about all the other children in the world who all long to be a princess, but they can't even fathom of a gown?" And in that moment, Elijah, I saw children from all over the world, children being abandoned, abused, trafficked, just having no clothes and going through dumpsters looking for food. And my heart sunk and I felt like I was carrying the weight of the world. And it was in this moment that the voice comes back and says, "Start designing. Reach out to these children and tell them that no matter what their circumstances, is that they are deeply loved and a true princess to the one true king." This was about 10 years ago, Elijah, and at that time, I didn't even know how to sew. And to be honest with you, even to today, I can't even sew a straight line. But I'll tell you how I responded. I was like, "Wow, what a great idea. Even though I don't know how to sew, my hands are crafty. I'll start making headpieces, buy one, donate one, make a child feel special." And I was thinking, I'll even sell it on Etsy because now I'm going to be a stay-home mom with all this time. Well, definitely that was not what happened. But remember that design I saw my daughter twirling in? That was the first heavenly design that God released over me. And I actually recreated it. And right before we launched at LA Fashion Week, God took that design and instead of Etsy, he took it straight into Vogue. And to today, our designs are in Vogue. And I'm grateful for all the places God has taken us. But so we have a foundation, and through our foundation, we empower humanity from restoring identity, working with children and individuals who have gone through extenuating circumstances and where their identity and value has been robbed. We come in, we love them, we give them this transformational experience. We've worked with children from having cancer, and it's crazy, but we believe in miracles, and there have been cases where some of our, whether it's models or whether it's people that we get to work with and love on, they have this supernatural healing. Like even kids who have had cancer, suddenly cancer is broken off, and God heals them. So it's really cool.
Amen. Well, thank you so much, Nancy, for kind of sharing with us at an introduction level what you do. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank
For everybody,
you.
yeah, for everybody listening to the show, if you're in Oahu, Maui, Kauai, or Big Island, you can call in and ask Michele, the leader of the Explicit Movement, or Nancy, a fashion designer, and ask us any questions. I'm your host, State Representative Elijah Pierick. You can call us at 833-296-TALK. Again, that's 833-296-TALK. We'd love to hear from you. So Michele, what has been one of the best tools you've seen used to help women know how valuable they are so that they can live and be in our communities in such a way that they feel confidence and they feel a sense of self-worth that helps them be all that they want to be and helps the community?
Yeah, well, I'm going to go back to Brave and Beautiful. That probably is the best research that Explicit Movement has created. But I want to tell a little bit backstory because it kind of relates to, Nancy and I, and how God has just kind of parted us together in one way. There's many ways, but going back to just that anti-sex trafficking issue that many of us may or may not be aware of, in our local state here. So back in 2019, I felt God put in my heart, like, this is the year we want to add anti-sex trafficking to the many subjects that Explicit Movement covers. So we had an island-wide free event for the community to educate, because many of you may not know this, but 64% of all the victims here in the state are of Native Hawaiian ancestry. There are girls trafficked out of, pretty much, the frontliners tell me, they cannot think of one public or private school that they don't work with victims. And so this is very epidemic it's growing problem in our state. And the recruiters are often classmates and friends. And they're trained by the pimps and whatnot. And so we really, this is really something we need to be aware of, because parents and teachers literally could have, girls in your life could literally be trapped, and you may not even know that they're trapped. Because whenever you can't be with them 24/7, and there's, it happens in school, before school, during school, after school, hours when oftentimes teenagers are by themselves, right? Or extracurricular activities. So anyway, what happened was, after the event, this is just the heart of, I think, God, as well as just, I'm sure all of us as mama bears and papa bears out there want to protect our kids, right? Yeah. Our kids in our neighborhoods and our families. Anyway, I was in the shower. I minding my own business, relaxing, how we all just have the end of the day. All of a sudden, I see this publication. It's like a vision of sorts floating in front of my eyes. And what is this? And the title is blurry, but the subtitle pops out and says, "Protect yourself from sex trafficking." And then the page is open, and I'm looking at, and it looks like a magazine style, with articles and graphics. And I finally just stop right there, and I just have a conversation with God, and I say, "God, what is this you're showing me?" And I feel the Lord just speak right back. He said, "This is a publication especially for teenage girls, to empower them to know their value, to grow in confidence, but also to equip them practically to protect themselves from being victimized." And I thought, gosh, that's a brilliant idea. You're so smart. I don't think there's anything like it. And then God's voice said, "I want you to do a Christian version first, and then a secular version, for the general public. And if you do it with excellence, it's going to go global." Well, I thought, oh my goodness, well, I can't imagine that global sounds like a little bit big, but I knew it was an assignment. And my heart really resonated, because I love our kids out here in Hawaii, want a mama bear heart. And so then I went ahead. Took about 3 years to actually, from beginning to end. And Nancy here also wrote a couple articles in it, and she has 6 pages in the first volume, and we collaborated in that way. Powerful story, as well as her heart for anti-sex trafficking as well, and so we connected on that level as well. Anyway, I have a funny story. So a year before it was published, which was in 2021, I'm not telling anybody about it, right? This is just my small group of friends. They know I'm working on this. No public, no promotion, no nothing. And all of a sudden, I'm getting these calls and these emails from people from around the world, and they're hearing about it. And I'm thinking, how are you hearing about it? I'm not telling anyone about it. One particular day, I get a WhatsApp from a lord, a royal lord in the House of Lords in the Royal UK Parliament.
Wow.
And he says, "I heard about Brave and Beautiful. Can you Zoom with my team next week to get this to UK?" And I thought, it's not even done yet. And how did you hear about it? And the same day, former Lieutenant Governor Duke Iona calls on the phone, and he says, "I heard about Brave and Beautiful. How can I help?" And, so we ended up talking, and it was so amazing. My husband said, wow, Michelle, in one day you have a Duke and a Lord calling you. It was so funny. But see, this is what God had said to me in the shower. And you have these thoughts, you think, I don't know if this is me, my own thoughts, but sure enough, I didn't do anything, and it started to spread before it was even done. And right now it's being translated to different, languages too. So that to say, the heart to protect our kids is huge. And we want to do what we can to empower them. And did you know, all of you out there, if a girl or a boy, we're talking about boys can get trafficked as well, but when a girl is confident, knows her value, has a positive vision for her life. She has goals, and she's growing in emotional health. Did you know that that's one of the top ways to protect herself from being victimized? Because recruiters, groomers, they tend to target those girls who don't have those things, and that makes them more vulnerable. So to decrease the vulnerability, we wanted to really really build up the girls, as you said, in confidence and knowing their value, and so many don't.
Amen. Thank you, Michelle, for sharing that. I appreciate that. There's so many stores on the west side of Oahu where I represent. There's Kamakana Ali'i, and at that shopping center, there's places like Victoria's Secret, and that I would say their idea of confidence is different than what you guys are trying to promote. So can you share with us the contrast between stylists and artists that help with clothes that are going in the Victoria's Secret direction versus your direction? Like, how are you different?
That's a great question, Elijah. I feel that if we look back as a woman of faith, when we go back to the Garden of Eden and when man fell to sin, what did God do? He clothed us. And I really feel that clothing and garments is a part of redemption. God himself was even a designer in the Bible. He created the garments for Aaron. He personally designed it, chose the fabrics, the textile design. He said, there needs to be holy garments for my holy people, for the holy work. And, I feel like right now fashion is in disobedience and in vanity. And I'm actually in the process of writing a book, and it's called Let There Be Fashion. And it's fashion from the perspective of calling fashion back to obedience and what it was always intended to be, which is to clothe God's children and for the work that we're called to do. And so I'm really excited about that because, we do so many fashion shows all around the world, and it breaks my heart especially when I see children being released down the runway in such a provocative way, where this is not, first of all, age appropriate at all. And it's really just feeding into like pornography and everything like that. And it saddens me. For me, in terms of how I view fashion, it is a part of our identity. It speaks to our identity. It speaks about royalty. And, I actually had a dream, and in the dream, Elijah, an angel came before me and handed me a scroll and said, open the scroll and read it. And so I did as I was instructed, and as I opened it, and before I could read what it said, I heard the thundering voice of God coming from behind me. And it sounded like rushing waters and mighty winds. And it said, tell the sons of man to arise. And as the power, it was just like when you are in the presence of God and he speaks, like your whole entire being is shaking. And the voice of the Lord came back and said, eat the scroll. So I did again as I was instructed, and I ate the scroll. And when I woke up, seriously, I was like, what in the world? I just literally ate a paper scroll. But what I knew was I had an encounter with God, and he had commissioned me to the elevation of humanity. And I believe that God is inviting me to use my fashion platform for the elevation of humanity. And so we recently launched Kingdom Heirs. It's a collection of garments that are beautiful, and it's to be launched to the marketplace of the world to restore kingdom identity, so that we know our value, our worth, our identity, and with that comes the crowning initiative. And the Lord reminded me, he was like, Nancy, so many people out there claim to be my sons and daughters, but how many of them actually are living in their fullness? How many of them actually know what it means to be a kingdom heir? Because there's so many of us out there broken, living in lack, whether it's depression, anxiety, just hopelessness. The Lord reminded me, tell my daughters and tell my sons to pick up their inheritance that are rightfully theirs. So we released our crowning initiative, and each of the crowns have these beautiful names, whether it's the crown of hope, crown of faith, crown of vision, dreams, crown of patience, abundance. And so it's been such a joy for me to partner with King Jesus. And the Lord was like, Nancy, if you will partner with me in this, I promise you, you're going to see transformation happen. You're going to be seeing lives impacted. And, God was so faithful, and within a year, he's literally taken the crowning initiative to every single sphere, whether it be even working from those who are homeless to those who are, powerful and influential, from schools, students, speaking identity, calling forth assemblies, that we're crowning identity over, we're speaking destiny, we're pulling out the greatness, we're awakening the dreamers, the doers, and, from schools to even in governmental areas, and even into churches, families, even into film, and corporate America companies. I want to talk about this corporate America company experience that was so amazing because, COVID hit. And I recently connected to a CEO of this big corporate America company, and he said, Nancy, you have such an inspiring story. My executives, because of COVID, have forgotten how to dream, because we work with, their patients are very vulnerable. And so he said, will you come and share your story to remind my executives how to dream? And I said, yes. And, a part of it was we were going to do the crowning initiative. And so, after I shared my story, we did the crowning initiative. And as these executives flew in from all different states, as they were coming up to be crowned, we were speaking destiny into them. And they started just weeping. And I believe that they were just receiving the spirit of truth speaking into their lives. Like hope was being restored, faith was being built up, joy was being renewed, and it was just life again. And, it was really cool because they started weeping. And this is like a corporate America company. And they were like, wait, how did she know this? And at the end of the day, the leaders were like, well, she happens to be a woman of faith and she has a relationship with God. And, and because of this, there's a group that is actually, they started a Bible study to seek out this God who actually sees them. And I think it's a beautiful thing how we can use fashion to truly embody who we are, and to empower humanity. I really believe it's time for the elevation.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
thank you so much. Yeah, Nancy, for sharing that. If you're just now joining us on the radio, you can join this conversation by calling 833-296-TALK. So if you're in the car and you're pulled over safely, or if you're in your garden, or if you're watering, or you're doing the dishes and you want to talk story with us, please call 833-296-TALK. So I'm your host, Representative Elijah Pierick, interviewing Nancy, who is the leader of a fashion designing company, and Michele, who is the leader of a movement called Explicit, helping men and women understand their identity and live hopeful and faith-filled lives from that. Let me ask you, Michele, so in Hawaii, we've got a lot of homelessness, we've got a lot of crime, we've got a lot of people experiencing financial lack. Is any of that connected to a lack of identity, or basically people prostituting themselves, or basically not letting their body be temples of the Lord and instruments that can help the community?
Well, I think that's such a great question. When I think back, when I think deeply about it, we are broken people. We have traumas in our lives, that can manifest itself in so many different ways, right? In homelessness or drug abuse or just pornography addiction, or just all of these broken things that we all care about in society. And getting to the root of those problems is where my heart is, to bring healing and hope to people, and that there is hope, there's resources right in our communities, and to really be able to encourage people to get that healing that they need. An example would be like, with Explicit Movement, we've had youth conferences, for example, and this is like the beginning stages when they're still children. They even our youth today, as you know, struggle with these same things, right? When we want to bring healing to them and encouragement of hope, so they don't end up, in these really devastating situations. Of course, there's always hope, right? And for miracles and turnarounds. But an example would be, like in our youth conferences, we've often on the first Friday night opening session, we talk about identity, we talk about your worth, we talk about very vulnerable. The speakers usually are very vulnerable themselves, so it creates this safe place to be where you're not judged and you feel like you can connect heart to heart with the speaker. And we've always had some kind of activity where a physical act that they could do. An example would be one time we had these mirrors, and we everybody had a mirror with a marker, and we said, okay, many of us struggle with lies that we believe about ourselves. Like, for example, I'm not worth anything, or I'm not good enough, or I'm ugly, or I'm stupid, or just different things that even we adults, if we look in our hearts, sometimes we struggle with the similar things. But these youth struggle, so we told them, write those lies, negative beliefs that you have on the mirror. So they did. And then we said, okay, and some of the kids there start weeping a little bit because they're getting in touch with the negative beliefs. And then we had all the leaders up front. We said, okay, coming up, and we're going to erase those mirrors and give you a Sharpie marker, permanent marker. So we did that. The kids came up. The leaders are out there, wipe the mirror clean, and we told the leaders to spend maybe 15, 30 seconds to just look at the youth in front of them and just speak words of encouragement and affirmation. For example, you are not a mistake. You're so amazing. You are worth so much. Just words of encouragement. I would say every time we've done that, it's not uncommon for kids to just crumble and weep, because they're so hungry for words like that, and just so much weeping. And then they get the Sharpie marker, their cleaned off mirror, they sit back down, and we say, okay, now ask God, how does he see you? He has good thoughts towards you, and write down those thoughts, And so then they would write down the new words, like, I am valuable, or I am beloved, or whatever those thoughts come. And then you have these kids just feeling so deeply moved. It's like a new name has come upon them, and then they can take that as a memento. And we had this one girl, a true story. She felt that she was ugly, fat, nobody, rejected. That was some of her words, because she was she said this, she wanted to keep her virginity till marriage. And in her school, she was being teased, and the boys were gambling on who could have sex with her first. And she was constantly being bullied. But when she came to the conference, the word she had was, I am beloved. And she would go home every single day. She told me this later, every single day she would go home and look at that mirror that she wrote, I am beloved, to remind her of her worth, like what we're talking about, worth and value. And that got her through the hard times. And now she's happily married with a child. And she said that moment changed her life.
Wow.
It was a pivotal moment. So we try to have those kind of opportunities for the kids to get in touch with those lies, so that it can be replaced with the truth of their true value. So that's just an example of I think, what some of the root causes. And for those of you that are listening who are adults, I want to encourage you also. If you struggle with those kind of thoughts yourself of your value, get help. Because you are valuable, you are beloved, you have so much amazing potential within you. And when you have your healing and breakthrough, in the sense of you finally even love yourself even more, I guarantee you it's going to naturally just spill over into your relationships, into your family relationships. I say this: your breakthrough in your inner heart will be your family's breakthrough, will be your ministry's breakthrough, will be it'll just spill over. So that's a good message really for all of us. And when you have that, you have the empathy for those who are hurting, like the homeless, to help them out of that place that they're in. You can come with that true empathy and love.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Michelle.
Yeah.
So I was in Eva Beach a couple days ago for our fall festival on Festival Street in Ho'opili, and I was going from booth to booth at the festival, asking people, what can I do for you as your public servant to make Hawaii better? And all sorts of feedback. One of the feedback was from an employee of Castle Medical School, and she basically said, slow down the human trafficking, do what you can to stop it. And I said, can you share more? And she said she was at one of the Kapolei shopping centers, and a guy in a truck drove by this auntie with her kids nearby, and he basically said, are the kids for sale? And then she was shocked that she witnessed the guy ask that publicly at the Kapolei shopping center parking lot. And so thankfully, she said, there was these two bigger guys in the parking lot that saw what was going on, and they rushed over and they started to beat up the guy that had asked, "Are the kids for sale?" So thankfully that there are protectors in our community that are trying to combat
Yes.
predators.
Yes.
But that story goes to show me that there are predators in our state. Sex trafficking is happening in our state.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when we hear on the news, when we hear the politicians debating and introducing legislation to combat mental health crisis, we needed to define what is mental health crisis. If you look at the DSM-5, it's a clinical document or a clinical book that describes medically what are some problems in the brain. One of them is gender dysphoria, and it's more of a descriptor to receive insurance coverage on people who don't know what their identity is regarding gender. And there's different ways to interpret that portion of the DSM-5. Some see it as a gateway for insurance coverage for counseling, whether it's sex change surgery or things like that. Others see it as a fairly plain description that if you're confused in knowing what your gender is, you need help. And coming from a biblical conservative perspective, I believe that God's best for us is heterosexual monogamous marriage, and that's the way we can, experience our sexuality. So when people try to change God's best for them, when they change the generation experience by, adult with child pedophilia or man on man, female on female, that's not God's best for us. And that plays out in statistics. There are more divorces amongst LGBTQ relationships than heterosexual relationships. There are more basically social and family stress amongst open marriages versus monogamous marriages. People that practice pornography and adultery are oftentimes much more anxious and unhappy with themselves versus people who are committed exclusively to each other.
Yes.
So when I thank you guys so much for being on the show, and thank you for contributing to God's best for the state of Hawaii by advocating for sexual purity, advocating for us knowing who we are in Christ and being valued in that, and moving forward to be leaders in our community. Because when we're leaders and when we're safe and confident in who God made us, we can help change Ewa Beach. We can help change Waipahu. We can help change the county of Honolulu, change the state of Hawaii. I don't believe the answers are in pieces of paper, laws being passed, and then the people not following them. It's through heart transformation.
That's so good. And one of the things that Michelle and I really believe in is, how do we actually help our youth and even young adults? How do we protect them from being trafficked is not like physically protecting them, but actually I believe that if we are able to awaken the dreamers in our youth, in the young adults, and provide resources that, listen, there's not one child out there who wants to get in trouble. The thing is, because at some point there was a hurt, at some point there was a brokenness or a lack. But if we, the city, were to build, let's say, whether it's these dream academies or centers where we're now inviting the youth, the young adults to come and to have the resources, the tools they need, and to even be able to call out the gold in them for them to teach them how to recognize what are their dreams. Because the truth is, many of us, even adults, have forgotten how to dream. And what happens is when we forget how to dream, we get distracted by what the enemy is doing and distracted by things that, is not really for us. That's not our portion. Like, we're not called into that, but we get pulled into it because we lose focus of who we are, what we're called to do. And instead of doing that, we could actually be building our dreams. And so Michelle and I are actually collaborating on some projects right now and going into schools and different areas with projects and programs, how to awaken the dreamer.
That's awesome. Awakening the dreamer. And if you're calling and you want to contribute on that dream, please call us at 833-296-TALK. We'd love to hear what your dream is by calling 833-296-TALK. I understand that tomorrow you guys are going to Radford High School. Can you share a little bit with us about that?
Yeah, we are going to just do a couple classes and just being able to share about dreaming big for your lives, and just really encourage the students and to have vision, and that there are treasures within them. That they maybe they're on the pathway of discovering those dreams. Maybe they already know some of the dreams, but to be able to help them to reflect and have that pulled out of them, and they can see that and have great vision. What principal, what parent doesn't want their child to have positive dreams for their lives, right? And that would put them on a positive path, So yes,
I
we're
love it.
excited about that. Just see how it goes, and we've just been there to encourage and serve the students.
And
love
I'm
it.
really excited too because, with my story, I'm actually a refugee.
Oh,
And it was so when communists took over Vietnam, we actually escaped by boat. So our journey, if you're familiar with those who escaped by boat, was really treacherous. Where you have pirates, you have people die because lack of food, water. So I was only 1 year old when I left Vietnam, and death had a grip on me. But in that moment of death, my dad, who didn't know God yet, called out to God and did this trade. He's like, God, if you're real and you're really out there, save my daughter now, and she will serve you the rest of her life. And, I tease my dad. I'm like, Dad, you're so smart. You traded my life. She will serve you, not me. But my dad's an amazing man. He taught me everything I knew about my faith, but God answered. And right when he said that, God came and saved my life. And so even though my trajectory was death and there was no hope, no future, but God, his hand was all over it, and he saved my life. And so I came to America, and from refugee, God has taken me here today, and I'm now living the dream that God gave me when I was a little girl, which is to be a fashion designer, and through my dream, God is so good because the dream that he actually put inside of me, I believe that he infused it inside of me as an invitation to partner with him in the thing that really matters. And so I'm now living my dream, but in partnership with God, and using this fashion platform God has given me, I can now contribute back to society. And that's the message and the story that I want to speak to these children, because we live in a broken society, and a lot of children, they don't think they're good enough. They don't think they can ever be smart enough. Not only was I a refugee, but I don't even know how to sew. And so if someone like me could be living my dreams and be working with contributing back to society, whether it be from homeless to being a voice, and to being a voice and bringing transformation to those of high places and influence and power, so can they. And this is the message I want: is we want to be able to release hope, release dreamers, and know that there is greatness inside every single child, because I so believe that we are all fashioned for love and greatness.
I love it. Love
Yeah.
and greatness.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that, just to be a little vulnerable. Like, I grew up in a home where I experienced, verbal and physical abuse from all the way till senior in high school. And so I had so much trauma in my life, and believed so many negative things about myself. But as in the healing journey with God, just even you listening, things can be birthed out of those dark, painful places in your heart, where you now have a passion to really help others from that place. And I think that's where part of my heart is, to help the youth, help families heal, to have thriving relationships, comes out of that place of knowing what I came out of, but that it doesn't have to be that way, and there's healing and there's restoration in relationships. And so it comes from that place in my heart, that passion to really serve our people here and beyond, and to really see that joy within relationships, that healthy relationships, and same with Nancy, coming out of that background, but God, how it's just woven together to something beautiful in the end, as we use that and like dream big,
That's right.
for
I love
good.
it. That's great. So having healthy and strong relationships. My dad often tells me to basically dress for the position you want. And I know that right now we're on radio, so I'm dressed for radio. But
You're still looking good.
thanks.
Yes.
But in general, like, if you want to have a job where you have to wear a suit and tie during the interview, wear a suit and tie. If you want to be a construction worker, then wear construction clothes to some extent, maybe during the interview. How would you say your fashion has helped people in vocational mobility, like helping them get promoted and become more prosperous and have the money that they desire to have, so they can buy a home and buy groceries in Hawaii?
Okay, so back to like garments being prophetic, I believe it's so true. So you can actually like start dressing what you want to be in, because you'll grow into that. right? But also fashion can be negative, where it could be, let's say if you're at an unhealthy place, it could be a reflection of where you currently are. And so we want to shift society into using fashion for good, in a sense that this is my hope, this is my dream, this is who I'm going to be, right? And so through our fashion, we believe in beauty, we believe in hope, love, everything that exemplifies life and life in fullness. And so we have actually, and again, back to, I'm just such a firm believer of the anointing. And there's no limit in the anointing. We have so many testimonies as people are being modeling our clothes or wearing our clothes. Like, we work with a lot of aspiring actors and models, and there have been some that were never able to find agencies, but through working with our brand, there was an elevation. And with the elevation, they started booking agencies. They started booking like national TV commercials, movies, films. It was really exciting to and I just love it because God does what God wants to do. And I really believe that when you wear clothes that demonstrate who you are, there's this inner confidence. And even if you're not there yet, but your spirit grows into that role that you want to be. And so I think how we dress ourselves is really, really important.
Yeah,
it tells the world who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I remember watching a behind-the-scenes outtakes on a movie that they made in Los Angeles, and the characters of the movie said that they became the characters that they were embodying for the movie when they wore the costumes. So they could feel it more. So, for instance, today, after this radio show, I'm going to drive to One Love Ministries, and we're having a rehearsal for a Christmas play. And so I'm going to be dressed up in the outfit of the professor, because I'm playing the professor role in the Christmas play.
That's awesome.
So whether it's a make-believe skit, or whether it's you're trying to be that confident father, or that knowledgeable mother, or fill in the blank, that studious student, dress for the position you desire. And I believe that can help you be more successful in life.
That's right.
And if you're trying to earn that money to buy that house someday in Hawaii, or just make enough money to fill up the gas tank, because gas is so expensive right now, start positioning your life in the direction you want to be in.
Yes, I believe you just said a key word right there. It's positioning yourself for the upgrade, positioning yourself for the promotion, and even as you're wearing and styling yourself to be positioned for what you desire, it's actually, like your mindset, right? It shifts your mindset. It shifts your mind to be at a place where you can receive, because I believe sometimes we want great things, but if we're not prepared to contain that bigness, sometimes it can do more damage, than good. And so that's where I think, like, positioning our spirit, positioning our mind, positioning ourselves to receive all the blessings that we're praying and we're hoping for. So I do believe, like, just in our choice, because how we style ourselves also is a reflection of our inner self, but dignity. And yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I'd like to share a story that might illustrate that. So I was at Nancy's house in last year in July, and there were a couple other women there with us. It's a nice intimate group, and Nancy surprised us one day. She says, "I'm going to have professional hair and makeup done." She asked us to bring a nice dress to wear, so I did, and so I happened to be the first woman that I got my hair done and makeup done. And she also gave us these crowns to wear, okay? So I had the crown on my head and a beautiful dress. And then while the other women were getting ready, Nancy says, "Oh, you're done? Come, follow me, Michelle." So I go out to the porch, and there's this big mirror. And she's a photographer, a powerful, amazing photographer. So she says, "Michelle, I want you to look in the mirror on the porch, and put your hand against the mirror like you're touching yourself. And I want you to, your face, and I want you to smile at yourself." Okay, so I'm like, okay, I'm just following directions. So she has her camera phone, and she's on the side, like, taking pictures, and it hits me. I go, I have a crown on my head, beautiful hair, makeup, a beautiful dress on, and I'm smiling at myself deeply. I'm looking at myself. How many of us look at yourself deeply? When you brush your teeth, you probably don't deeply, right? But I was looking at myself, smiling, and you know what came to my mind? I said, "Wow, I'm beautiful." And I thought, oh my gosh, I have never in my entire 60 years of life ever thought of myself like that.
Wow.
But it was kind of like a healing moment. Right in that moment, God talked to me. He says, Michelle, I've been waiting for this moment all your life to finally see yourself how I see you. And then he said, remember when you first got married, was decades ago, and you looked at yourself in the mirror and you cursed yourself. Because back then I hated myself, right? I was a very broken woman. And I remember when I first got married, my husband and I got in an argument. I looked in the mirror and I said, I hate you. I wish you were dead. I mean, I literally said that to myself. And then, of course, I had to ask God to forgive me for saying that, because that's not a good thing to say to yourself. But that was a long time ago. And the Lord said, remember that moment and look at it now. This is a full circle moment for you. See how far you've come. And I started to weep and cry, and I told Nancy about it, and then she says, oh my goodness, she ran away, Nancy, and you came back with a key, a golden key in her hand, and she goes, she put this key in my hand. She says, God just gave you a key. Do you know what it is? And I'm crying. I'm like, I don't know. I can't even think right now. And then she says to me, God just gave you the key to extravagantly loving yourself. And I thought, oh my goodness. And then the what it is like that. There's a Bible verse that says you love others like you love yourself. Well, it wasn't loving myself in pride. It wasn't loving, I was still had humility, but it's loving yourself in a good, godly, glorious way, and seeing your worth. And when you do that, the capacity to love others suddenly grows. And so I began to understand the value of truly loving yourself.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so anyway, that's a good illustration for all of you out there. I want to have homework for each of you. Go home tonight, look in the mirror and say, if you're a woman, I am beautiful, and gosh, it'll be interesting to see your reaction. Any men? I'm a good looking guy, good looking dude. Or just say, I am amazing, or whatever comes to your mind, and see how you react.
That's so good, Michelle. I'm so glad you shared that story, because I really believe that, so we do these retreats in Napa, right? And it's all about rest, reflect, and receive all that the divine has for you. And I have a lot of mirrors around the property, even in the gardens, because I believe in the mirror ministry, because just like fashion, how the enemy took that and brought it into vanity, right? I believe the enemy did the same with mirrors. And so anytime that anyone looks at themselves in the mirror, a lot of times it's like, well, I don't want anyone to see me looking at myself in the mirror, because it's about vanity. People think, and the thing is, the Lord was like, I want my children to see themselves as I see them. And because of that, sometimes we're actually afraid to look at ourselves and to reflect in the innermost being of ourselves and where we are in our heart, and so I think that's so important, because we can't give what we don't have. And so if we can't even love ourselves in extravagant measures, how can we love our family, our children, our spouse, our neighbor in extravagant measures? And because the truth is, you can't give on an empty tank, and love comes from within. And so thank you, Michelle, for bringing that up, because that moment was so powerful. I will never forget that moment when I saw you. She literally dropped to the ground and started weeping. And I was like, Michelle. And she was like, God just healed me.
Well, I want to just tag just one more thought about that. Elijah, you talked earlier about confidence. I came home from that moment changed, and I didn't even know I changed. My husband has been married with me, we're almost 40 years now.
Wow.
I came home, and after a couple of weeks he's noticing me. He goes, you changed since you came back from Nancy's house. Wow. I said, really? How have I changed? Because sometimes you don't really notice. He goes, well, you're more confident, you're more secure in yourself, and you're carrying yourself with greater confidence in knowing how you're worth. I was like, really? And I noticed a change in me. So there is actually that confidence. It goes back to, how do you see yourself? Do you believe the lies, or do you believe the immense worth that you have?
Yeah.
Do you believe it? Not just know it in your head, but really believe it in your heart.
Yeah, I love it. So if people are just now joining us on the radio, you might be thinking, okay, this is the time of the day when we're talking about politics and Hawaii and conservatism and what is going on. So I'm your host, Elijah Pierick, one of the state representatives in the state, and I want to give context. One of my goals as an elected representative is to elevate our community, to promote Ewa Beach, Waipahu, Kunia, Honolulu'uli, Ho'opili, and when I'm first focused on my district, I also want to help the rest of the state. And we can do that by knowing who we are. first in Christ, and also if you're not a Christian, just know how valuable you are as a creature of God. And I believe that the more we have confidence in ourselves, the more we can help our communities.
And purpose.
And have purpose.
To do good work in your community.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
So if you're a guy listening to this show and you've been patiently listening along the journey and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, my wife, she takes a long time in the makeup room before we go to, whatever it is, maybe a Sunday night dinner or something like that. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, why do I get so frustrated when she's taking, that much time to put on makeup and wear the fancy dress and everything? Like, I'm just wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Let's go. Maybe he even forgot to wear deodorant. Just think to yourself in this way: how much time do you put in making sure that your work on the job site is done well? How much time do you put in making sure that you've studied for that test that you need to pass before you make that promotion? How much time do you put in making sure that you're doing the best you can do at your work site? And then, Nancy, if you could reply to that, do you think a woman sometimes sees herself in that regard as maybe he sees his job?
That's a really good question, Elijah. And I believe a woman sees herself in terms of how much she takes care of herself is a reflection of how much she's willing to invest in the things that matter to her. And for those ladies out there who are taking the time to take care of yourself and to give yourself permission to dress up and feel beautiful, I mean, kudos to you. Bravo. Because so many of us just don't take the time to take care of ourselves. And the thing is, it's like we are a garden. We are the garden of the Lord. And the truth is, if we don't take care of the garden, you're going to start seeing weeds grow up. Disease is going to overtake. And so there's a season for pruning. There's a season for weeding out. And just like that, it's with our life. We have to take time to take care of our garden. And we are the garden. So I think that a lot of men, sometimes I think it's unfair because a lot of times I feel like men just age so gracefully. They get more handsome as they age. But I believe it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural belief because for women, and I'm so loving it now more and more. People are having these conversations, like why is that women have to put on all this makeup or, why is it that we view women in their prime when they're in their 20s and then the beauty goes down, whereas for men, a lot of times people don't view men like that. They view men as it's kind of like wine, you get finer as you age. But the truth is, I believe that both men and women, we get finer as we age. And there's such a beauty and there's a radiance that shines even brighter. So, I think to answer you, I think it's just priorities. As to where we feel is a priority and what is important to us. But we were just in conversation today about how important it is to take care of our bodies, because we are the temple of God. And so I think that's really important.
That's great. Yeah. So we've got about a minute left in the show. Michele, what's like the last 30 seconds, last minute you'd want the state of Hawaii to know?
Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. There's so much in my heart. Okay. Well, I just want you to know that there are so many amazing people with creative ideas, and I want to just challenge each one of you. Each one of you is creative problem solvers. You have gifts and you have talents, and together, when we collaborate together, we can do great and mighty things for our community. And so just know that you have value, and we don't have to be in competition, but we can actually celebrate each other's part. To come together into a whole, to make a difference together. You're not alone. And it's amazing when you start dreaming big for your community, for your family.
Thank you so much.
Things come together.
Thank you, Michele. Nancy, about 10 to 30 seconds, what do you want the state of Hawaii to know?
Dream bigger. Because when we start dreaming, we're going to start seeing cities building, and we're going to see things that this is the year actually of the open door. And I believe there's a fresh anointing for us to pursue our dreams. The new projects, new dreams, start it now. Now is the time.
Thank you so much. This is your host, Representative Elijah Pierick, coming to you live from the studio in Salem Media, Hawaii. Thank you so much, Representative Lauren Matsumoto, for letting me cover your show today. I hope you're having a great day. Hawaii, be blessed, and aloha.
Capital Convo on AM 690, FM 94.3. The Answer was brought to you by the Savio Group of Companies, with the belief that we can solve all of our state's problems, including housing, by understanding the issues. Join the Convo every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. right here on The Answer.